22nd Sunday in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of the prophet Jeremiah. You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped. You were too strong for me, and you triumphed. All the day I am an object of laughter. Everyone mocks me. Whenever I speak, I must cry out. Violence and outrage is my message. The word of the Lord has brought me derision and reproach all the day. I say to myself, I will not mention him. I will speak in his name no more. But then it becomes like fire, burning in my heart, imprisoned in my bones. I grow weary holding it in. I cannot endure it. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. I urge you, brothers and sisters, by the mercies of God, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God, your spiritual worship. Do not conform yourselves to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect. The word of the Lord.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer greatly from the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. Then Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. God forbid, Lord, no such thing shall ever happen to you. He turned and said to Peter, Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do. Then Jesus said to his disciples, Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What profit would there be for one to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? Or what can one give in exchange for his life? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in his Father's glory, and then he will repay all according to his conduct. The Gospel of the Lord.
Reflection. The readings for this Sunday remind us that Christians are called to live their lives in a different way than others around them. In other words, Christian discipleship demands honesty, willingness to suffer, generosity to offer our bodies as a living sacrifice to God, and readiness to follow Jesus by obeying his commandment of love. Today's readings explain how these things may be done. Jeremiah, in the first reading, was certainly a prototype of the suffering Christ. The prophet lived from about 650 BC to about 580 BC. Most of his work was in Judah's capital, Jerusalem. Jeremiah was sent by God to tear up and to knock down, to destroy and to overthrow. He tried to keep the people faithful to God amidst an atmosphere of political intrigue and backstabbing. He was regarded as a traitor by his own people because, as God's mouthpiece, he had to foretell the dire results that would follow their plan of revolt against the mighty power of Babylon. So he became depressed and he complained bitterly to God. The English word Jeremiah means an elaborate and prolonged lamentation or tale of woe. Today's passage in the first reading is the purest of Jeremiah's, in which Jeremiah accuses Yahweh of tricking him. It is a powerful description of someone suffering for obedience to his conscience. The responsorial psalm, as usual, is intended as a formal reply to the first reading, in this case a compliment to Jeremiah's cry of woe. The psalmist manifests his profound trust in God, just as Jeremiah himself does. In the second reading, Paul advises the Roman Christians how to live their Christian lives in such a way that they differ both from the Jews and the pagans. St. Paul calls on Christians to adopt an attitude of sacrifice in their worship of God. In order to do this, they must explicitly reject the behavior of the world around them. Paul tells them, "Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice to God." Paul then explains that the sacrifices we should offer are not the rituals of the Jewish temple, but our bodies as a living sacrifice, spiritual worship. In this way we differ from the Jews and the pagans by our nonconformity to the present age. Paul also advises Christians to discern what is the will of God, what is good and pleasing and perfect. In today's Gospel, Jesus takes his disciples by surprise when, after Peter's great confession of faith, he announces that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer greatly from the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. After correcting Peter's protest, Jesus announces the three conditions of Christian discipleship: deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Unless we constantly remind ourselves of this difficult vocation from God, we will fail to be the kind of disciples that Christ expects us to be.